And now I'm happy to introduce somebody who is on that quest and reaching for her unreachable star, and it inspires me. Rita Conrad.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you, Richard. When you came in this morning and you said, I've been thinking about singing maybe The Impossible Dream, what do you think? And I said, yeah. I should have added, and sing it after I talk and not before. One of these days, I'm going to just have hold up a sign, don't make me cry, don't make me cry, before I have to do this. That song, every time I come to talk, there's always a song that inspires me. And when I was speaking in January, it was Martin Luther King Day, and I was listening to Luther Vandross sing The Impossible Dream, and that really just soared. So thank you for picking up on that, just a few months late, but yeah. So today I'm going to begin by asking you to close your eyes. Think of something you really, really want, or want to have happen. Take a deep breath. Let it out. And open your eyes. Every day, on the day we've entered this life here on earth, we do something similar. We make a wish, we imagine what we want for the year, and we blow out a birthday candle. The Greeks began this tradition as a form of worship to Artemis, the goddess of the moon. The round cake symbolized the moon, and all the candles around it symbolized the moonlight. And they believed that when they blew out the candles, all that smoke would carry their wishes up to the gods. Can you imagine someone thinking that? Someone did. Someone imagined that that was possible. Stephen Brookfield, a renowned author of books on teaching and adult education, and an expert on that topic, defined imagination as the key to human progress, because without the capacity to imagine a different world that is more beautiful than the one we live in, change is impossible. We have to imagine it first. Why would we strive for something better or different if we didn't have the imagination to conceive of that? And he writes in his book, Engaging Imagination, the capacity to imagine is part of what makes us human. It's essential, a creative impulse that people build on as they conceive of and realize new social forms and artistic processes. Imagination is also often playful and elusive. It revels in serendipity and unexpected connections, chance meetings, and seeing the everyday and familiar in new ways. Seeing the everyday and familiar in new ways. We have grand examples of imagination in action right in our lifetime, right in this lifetime. I can still remember the city I was living in, the place I was standing, the person I was talking to when they said to me, hey, have you heard? They're trying to combine the function of a camera into our phones. Yeah. Who would ever, can you imagine that? Who would ever want to take pictures with their phone? And a few years later, when someone said, now they want to put all the music in the world on our phones, people were disfazed. No one blinked all that much. They said, that crazy Steve Jobs. What's he going to imagine next? And he did keep imagining. Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge can get you from point A to point B, but imagination can take you wherever you want to go. Sometimes we fear our imagination. We're warned not to let our imagination run away with ourselves. Who knows where it will take us? Maybe think Alice in Wonderland down a rabbit hole. If you start imagining, who knows if you'll ever stop? You'll see things no one else does, and people will think you're weird. How many times have you said to yourself, that can't really have happened? It must have been my imagination. We devalue one of our most amazing gifts. We disbelieve what it shows us, or fear that we'll never be able to live up to it. The theme for this month is curiosity, and imagination wouldn't exist without the questioning that's inherent in curiosity. Because the one big question of imagination is, what if? John Lennon's song, Imagine, is all about asking us to imagine, what if something didn't exist? So late Friday night, I stumbled across a book I really needed in that moment. Talk about serendipity. It's by Unity Minister Mendy Maudlin, and the title is, What If It All Goes Right? And I really needed it at that moment, because in it she talks about what if being a question that's a double-edged sword. We can create and we can destroy with that same question. She talks about something called what if up and what if down. And on Friday night, I was focusing on what if down, imagining all sorts of bad things that might happen today in this moment. What if I can't finish writing my Sunday talk? What if my Sunday talk doesn't make any sense? What if people fall asleep during it? I had to force myself to stop that downward spiral of what if downing, and to move into what if up, that focused on more uplifting possibilities. Like, what if I sat down at my computer and the talk just flowed right off my fingers? What if I say whatever needs to be heard by the one person who needs to hear it? What if my talk is so good, Oprah calls and asks me to do it on her show? Yeah, I let my imagination run away with me on that one. Imagination is vital for our spirituality. It's harder to think spiritually without that what if up option. Because first of all, when thinking of ourselves as spiritual beings, we have to be able to imagine us as being more than what we visually see. That there's a force that pulses through us that we cannot see, but we feel, we imagine is true. What was it that urged Myrtle Fillmore to bless and affirm health in each of her organs in her body, if not imagination? What if our imagination is our intuitive truth speaking? The internal voice urging us to feel beyond what we think we know. When a judge accused Joan of Arc of being the victim of her own imagination, she replied, "How else would God speak to me?" One of the most difficult things for us to imagine is that the same thread that runs through Buddha, Kuan Yin, Lao Tzu, the apostles, the saints, Joan of Arc, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, this thread of living as merged humanity and divinity runs through you and I. What's more difficult to imagine? And for many of us, we really can't imagine that thread running through us and Jesus Christ. And there's a good reason why. And I forgot to ask my assistant to pass out the paper that I brought. And for all of you on Zoom, this moment is when I need you to have your pieces of paper, because we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to use our imagination. Yeah, we have not written secret messages to you. What was that about McCarthy still lives or something? And our bank codes are not on the back either, so. When we will recycle this. So, what I'm going to ask you to do in a little bit is to close your eyes again, and then keep them closed. Keep them closed while you're doing this. I'm going to give you a set of simple instructions that you'll need to interpret. You cannot ask me questions. And you cannot say anything to anyone else. You can't ask anyone else a question either. No talking is allowed. Remember that in the classroom. I'm very good at no talking. And I will not repeat the instructions. So, you ready? Close your eyes. Fold the piece of paper in half. Fold the paper in half again. Fold the paper in half again. Tear off the right-hand corner. Turn the paper around and tear off the left-hand corner. Open your eyes and unfold your paper. Hold it up and look around at the other papers that are around you. Ooh, that's like a snowflake. Let's see what happens. Oh, yay. Can I? Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Yes, you are allowed to laugh. I'm sorry. Spirituality is funny. Yes, I firmly believe that. So here you have a prime example of everyone hearing the same words, but interpreting them in their own way. So is it any wonder when we hear or read the words of Jesus or the Bible that tell us that we are like him? We all hear something a little different if we hear those words at all. And the words we hear are not always, "It's this way." Jesus was a normal human being in many ways, and we just forget that part and skip right by it because we are so biased by the point that we've been told for so many years that he is God. And we need our imagination to bridge that gap between human and God. This past Mother's Day, the one day when I put all my mother guilt in a big closet and closed the door just for one day, on everything that I know I've said or done that will send my son into therapy, it closes and goes. Mother's Day is my one day to ignore all my perceived failings. And I let my imagination wander and wondered what it must have been like for Mary, the mother of Jesus, the human Jesus, the one perfect mother of the one perfect child ever on the planet. And I'd like to think in my bones, I have to believe that there was at least one day of her existence where she, like all human mothers, threw up her hands in exasperation and wondered what planet her child had come from. In her case, she knew, but still, for the rest of us. I know there had to have been one day when she was down by the well, she turned to her neighbor and she said, "I don't know what to do about that son of mine. We taught him a good trade. He was supposed to go into business with his father, But now he's 30, he doesn't go to work. He's hanging out at the beach with some fishermen. The other day, I heard he was out in a boat, then went walking on water. And if I've told him once, I've told him a million times, he's going to break his neck doing that. Does he listen to his mother? No. And today, he drops by the house, grabs a few loaves of bread and a couple fish, and says he's going camping with his buddies for 40 days. What's a mother to do with a son like that? I know in other churches I now would be looking up and maybe stepping to the side from waiting for the thunderbolt, but I don't have to wait for that here, Makes me feel a little bit better as a mother that if I think Mary might have had a human moment like that. It makes it a bit more imaginable when I'm told that what made Jesus Christ, that divinity represented by that word Christ, which was not his last name, I've just discovered that Christ is also within me. I recently took a class where at one point we entered the Zoom room and the instructor welcomed us with new names. So instead of saying, "Hi, Rita Conrad, welcome to class," she said, "Welcome, Rita Christ." And I'll tell you, it's really weird to hear that out loud. If that doesn't blow your mind and make your world tilt on its axis, I don't know what will. We were all in shock, like, "You can say that?" She said, "Yeah, you can say that." Practice saying that in a mirror a few times. To imagine, to wrap our heads around this is so difficult. Our hearts are another matter. When our head is asking, "What if that's so?" our hearts are always saying, "Why are you even asking? You do know." The theologian Richard Rohr, in his book, The Universal Christ, wrote, "We theologians would have helped history and individuals so much more if we had spent our time revealing how Christ is everywhere, in everyone and everything, instead of proving that Jesus was God." Rohr asks, what if Christ is a name for the transcendent within everything in the universe? What if Christ is a name for the immense spaciousness of love? What if Christ refers to an infinite horizon that pulls us from within and pulls us forward forever toward it? What if we daringly believe that God's presence was poured into a single human being so that humanity and divinity can be seen to be operating as one within him and therefore in us? He goes on to say, if we cannot pull these two seeming opposites of God and human together in Jesus Christ, we usually cannot pull these two together in ourselves or in the rest of the physical universe. Frankly, Jesus came to show us how to be human much more than how to be spiritual, and the process still seems to be in its early stages, he writes. Without Jesus, the sheer scale and significance of our deep humanity is just too much and too good for our ordinary minds to imagine. But when we rejoin Jesus with Christ, we begin a big imagining and a great work. He also says, the Christian life is simply a matter of becoming who we already are. Just learn to trust and draw further on your own deepest experience, and you will know the Christ all day, every day, before and after you ever go to any kind of religious service. Imagine that. That's a Franciscan priest writing that. So just as you spend time in meditation and prayer, consider spending 5 minutes a day in imagination. Sit with the challenge of the Christ living in you. Do a little what if upping. What if I could bring more goodness to my life and to the world? What would that look like? What if my presence here could make a difference? What would that be? What if I get to experience forgiveness on a whole new level? What kind of possibilities will that create for me? What if I use my experiences to identify my own limiting patterns and maybe choose something different? What if I am infinite love? What does that feel like? At least once a day, close your eyes. Ask what if. See the imaginable. Then open your eyes, look in the mirror, and say, welcome, fill in your first name, Christ. And so it is.